Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all so much for taking the time to be on our Houston, Texas webinar this evening. I am super excited to be able to go over this market with you folks, along with our amazing agent, Rachel Page, who I'm going to introduce shortly. Before we get going tonight, I just want to do a quick housekeeping, make sure everybody can hear us and everybody can see our screen. Just to make sure that we're set to go for the presentation. So if you don't mind typing in the chat box that the audio is good, that you can see us, then that will prompt us to go ahead and get started. So I'll wait for a few inquiries to come in just so we know that everybody's with us. Awesome. Thank you. I'm seeing some folks now, so I appreciate the feedback. Very helpful. Awesome. Yep, I'm getting it. Looks like everybody's here. So thank you guys so much. So to get started, we're going to talk about Houston tonight. So Houston is one of our newest markets to Marshall Reddick, but has been providing a steady flow of quality tenants and a really good pace of appreciation over the last few years. With Houston being one of the largest cities in Texas, there's no shortage of people or employment opportunities. Rachel is going to be diving into some of the specifics of what makes Houston a great place to invest, as well as share some of the areas that we're going to be focusing on that we do focus on currently. I'd like to introduce myself. So my name is Vince Tomich. I'm an advisor here at Marshall Reddick, and I work out of our Newport Beach office in California. So my primary role as an advisor is to learn as much as I can about each individual investor and help guide you through the investment process. So there are many steps in buying an investment property, and I'm here to assist, from our first call to post-closing and anything in between. There are a number of team members from our agents, our lenders, our property management team, and I help make all those connections and field any questions along the way. I was a little bit more about myself. I was born and raised here in Southern California. I've been in the real estate industry now for over 7 years. And, truthfully, I'm a big fan of practicing what I preach. I own investment property myself. I've purchased with Marshall Reddick. I use Marshall Reddick's property management. I'm an investor in our private lending department, which I'll go over shortly. But what's nice, and I can attest that there's many clients or many staff members, including Rachel, that practice this same philosophy, right? So we, of course, are employees of the company, but ultimately, a lot of the reason we seeked out Marshall Reddick and why we're here is, we are clients and we're in this type of business ourselves. So for those of you that are unfamiliar with Marshall Reddick, this is always a good time to explain, who we are and what we do. It looks like there's quite a bit of folks that probably are familiar, and then I see some new names here. So I'd like to take a couple minutes just to explain our core business services, so that you guys are familiar. So I like to consider us a full service real estate firm. So I want to start with real estate brokerage. So real estate brokerage, we help people buy and sell property, whether it's a primary residence or an investment property, right? Next is property management. So 99% of the investors that we work with, they end up needing property management. So we offer that service as well. As most of the time folks have full-time jobs and they are not prepared to dedicate themselves to handling that. So we would handle everything from A to Z. So what does that include? Just really quick to list a few is marketing the property for rent, any kind of we do background checks and all the screening of the tenants. We collect the rent, we disperse the rent, any kind of maintenance or repair requests we would handle, and all of your tax documents at the end of the year, right? We make sure that all that's in line for your CPA. So anything that basically would need to be handled on the owner's behalf, you would just be kept abreast of things that are going on and making decisions, but ultimately we would handle the day-to-day for you. Our third service is private money lending. So there's kind of twofold here. It ties into investment fund, but our private money lending from the borrower side, right? There's people that borrow money from us, and then there's going to be the opportunity to lend money with us, which kind of ties more into the investment fund there. But let me give you examples of people who borrow money from us. So it's not like your conventional loan that you're typically, that you might be more familiar with, that you bought your primary home with. These are going to be more asset-based. So we're not as concerned with FICO scores and income as we are the property, the value of the property, what it can rent for, right? So the typical borrowers that we deal with are going to be your fix and flippers, right? The individuals that may have a self-directed retirement account and you need a non-recourse loan. That would be another good example of someone who borrows money from us. Or maybe there's some of you investors out there that have reached the conventional 10 finance property limit, and now you need private money or hard money to make your next acquisition. We would be a good resource for that capital, right? So those are good examples of the people that borrow money from us. Now, on the flip side, you can lend money with us. You can be a lender or be the bank. So instead of collecting a rent payment, you can collect a mortgage payment, right? It's a lot more straightforward. And this ties into our investment funds, right? So there's a couple ways to be a lender. There's through our fund, which we have a mortgage fund that's been doing really, really great over the last couple of years, and that is something where your capital is invested in multiple loans that are comprised in the fund, and you get a quarterly distribution, and you can elect to take that distribution or re-roll it in, and that's a really good way to create some passive income for the folks that are trying to diversify, right? A lot of our individuals are invested in stocks, bonds, mutual funds. You know, we're obviously promoting real estate, but the lending of capital is also a really interesting avenue to go down. The alternative to that is if you don't like the fund model, there's a direct lending capacity where you're actually the funder, you're the lender on to one borrower. So it's just one borrower, one lender, and Marshall Reddick makes that connection. That's the nuts and bolts of what we do here and our services that we provide. Again, my role as an advisor is to ultimately make the process of investing as seamless as possible by educating you and introducing all the key players that work with us to make it all happen. So for any questions on any of these other services, I will be doing follow-up calls. You can always reach out, and happy to discuss further. Okay, so our markets, where do we focus our efforts, right? So we're located in 5 states across the country, but we're going to be focusing our presentation on Houston, Texas, right? But you'll see all of these bullet points that list the cities. These are places that Marshall Reddick has a physical footprint in, right? So we have the ability to do our brokerage, our property management, etc. So for those of you that, you know, are maybe this is your first time and first introduction to Marshall Reddick, if any of these other markets are of interest or you have business there, we can definitely be a resource. So take a look at this map just to get familiar with where we can be of service to you guys. Now, before turning it over to Rachel, I just wanted to quickly go over to, you know, how we choose these markets. You saw a list of markets that we're invested in. How do we choose them? So we've taken the time to vet out very specific markets that we want to focus on. And I think we can all agree that not every market across the US is a good market to invest in. So we've put together some key criteria we feel support a strong investment market. That includes good job market, right? Rachel's going to be going over that in detail. Houston is no shortage of jobs, lots and lots of opportunities there. Rental demand, right? How do we get rental demand? You have to have a good population. You have to have people moving there, and we do have that. Economic diversity is important. Housing affordability is also really important, right? So for those of you that may be with me here in Southern California, that's one of our main barriers to entry is the home prices are significantly high and higher, I should say, than most of the other places across the United States. So for that reason, it makes investing here a challenge, but places like Texas, it's much more palatable. Strong education is also critical. And then last but definitely not least is reliable property management. We want to make sure that, you know, one of the most expensive or one of the most highest price investments that you're going to park your money in is well managed and it's taken care of by professional folks. And, you know, we pride ourselves in being able to offer that service to you guys. So That's a little bit of how we choose these markets. And without further ado, I'm really excited to be able to introduce you guys to Rachel Page. Rachel Page used to live here. I'll let her explain, but used to live here in Southern California, sat very close to me in our office here, and worked together for multiple years. And she's an amazing agent in both California and in Texas, and we're really excited to have her speak and tell us a little bit more about Houston. So Rachel, whenever you're ready, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Vince. Can you hear me okay?
Hear you great, loud and clear.
Awesome. Well, welcome everybody. Super excited to see all of you here tonight. We have a great turnout this evening. I know quite a few of you, some of you get some extra credit. You've already purchased property here with me in Houston, but there's a lot of names I haven't seen before, which is also really exciting. So for those of you I haven't had the opportunity to connect with, my name is Rachel. I grew up in Seattle and I moved down to California for college. And then 2.5 years ago, like Vince was saying, my family moved out here to Texas. So I began my own journey as an investor with Marshall Reddick back in 2012. And over the past decade, my husband and I have bought and sold property in 5 different Marshall Reddick real estate markets. I've been involved with the company for some time with that. And I'm very passionate about this company and what real estate investing has done for us. And so I love sharing that with my clients as well. Just like Vince was saying, we really do practice what we preach. I'm a licensed agent in California and Texas as well. So hopefully tonight, everyone's gonna enjoy learning more about our newest Marshall Reddick market. So meet our Texas team. It's very exciting. We now actually have 4 offices throughout Texas. So our flagship office was opened in San Antonio, followed soon after by Austin. And then early this year, we opened our gorgeous, huge New Braunfels office, which we've already almost filled, which is wild. And then most recently, we just opened the doors of our beautiful Houston office right here in the heart of the Woodlands on the Waterway. I'm actually sitting in that office as we speak. We've grown tremendously as a company through the past few years, and we actually manage over 1,500 doors in Texas now. We're at 1,502 as of this morning, so very exciting stuff. So things are going to cover this evening. I'm going to start, make it personal with my move to Texas and what our whys were. Things really are bigger in Texas. The Houston historical performance, it's been a powerhouse performer through the decades. Houston was the most resilient Texas market in 2009, growth year of almost 1%. We're going to get into that. Obviously, based on the topic of tonight, we're going to talk about how Houston is the energy center of the world. We're a Fortune 500 hotbed. We are home to the Texas Medical Center, which is actually the world's largest medical campus, and we'll get all into that later. Obviously, a big aerospace hub with NASA as kind of the well-known company, but many others. We have some client relocation stories to share with you, and then we'll close things out with some property picks, just a couple, and then yeah, go from there. So home sweet home. I wanted to start, like I said, with some personal stories. So started a personal note with some photos of life here in Texas since we've moved. So Houston, to me, is way more than just a Marshall Reddick market. This area really has become close to my heart. Like my family, you know, decided to relocate here from Orange County just about 2.5 years ago, and it's truly become home for us. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about these photos before we jump in. So starting at the top left and going clockwise, this is my youngest kiddo, John. He's 4, and we took that photo at our favorite beach out here, Surfside. We try to squeeze in weekend beach runs. The next photo we took at the Houston Zoo. The upper photo is from the Houston Rodeo, which is a really cool rodeo. If you decide you want to come check the market out, a great time of year to come is March. The rodeo is the largest rodeo in the country, and it's a full, I want to say 6 weeks with nightly concert lineups. And the cool thing about it is it's actually run as a community outreach. It's a nonprofit. It's mostly facilitated by volunteers. So you every day you buy a concert ticket, and that gets you into the rodeo for the day. So you can see top billed artists for a fraction of the cost of what you would pay elsewhere. And it's a super fun event to go to. I highly recommend it. Lots of clients try to see it while they're in town. So I highly recommend it. The next photo are my kiddos at Surfside. That's also my oldest, George. The bottom left photo is with the umbrellas. That was taken right outside of our office, which happens to be right next door to my favorite coffee shop in Texas called Blue Door. It's absolutely delicious and way too conveniently located. This silly picture with the crawfish. This is something I really didn't know about when I lived in California, but crawfish boils are very much part of the culture out here in the South. People take it very seriously. They go on for hours and hours and hours, and it's truly like hospitality at its finest. People really know how to cook and host people down here. It's very fun. The bottom middle photo is kind of random, but not the most attractive photo of me. My husband and I woke up in the middle of the night and waited in line for hours at one of the top barbecue places in Texas, if not the top. It's called Snow's Barbecue. It's in Hill Country. So the woman next to my husband is actually a world famous pit master, Tootsie Tomatis. And if you haven't seen the Chef's Table Barbecue series, it's a must see. She draws crowds from around the world. Like the day we went, the first people in line got there the night before and flew in from France to eat the barbecue. So got to check it out. So all of that just goes, as you can see, there's just a lot of fun to be had here in Houston Metro. That's a bit more about my family and the things we love. So practically speaking, some of the things that drew us to the Woodlands in Houston from Orange County, honestly, like opportunity. The annual income in Houston Metro is actually higher than other major metropolis marketplaces within Texas. Not only are we the largest city within Texas, but statistically income is higher here. It's truly an affordable cost of living. It's very affordable. We don't have any state income tax, which is wonderful. Beautiful natural surroundings. Houston's actually, I didn't realize this till I came out, but it's very heavily forested until you get about 30 minutes away from the coast. And then the foliage shifts to more of like a subtropical, there's like palm trees and less pine trees as you get closer to the coast. But it's very naturally beautiful. Personally, we also chose it for access to the Gulf, so we could have beach days. Education was also very important to us. Houston has dozens of blue ribbon schools and extensive alternative education options, which include charter schools. My oldest, George, he goes to a charter school, which is like a private public school. There's hybrid options, lots of private schools, co-ops, and more. Just a lot. It's very much structured for choice and lots of opportunity and lots of free family-friendly activities all year round. So that's kind of our personal why. So now that I shared our reason why, this is why a lot of my investors are choosing Texas. So Business Insider and The Atlantic labeled Houston as an economic juggernaut. It's big, it's very big. It's the largest and most populous city in Texas. Within the city itself, there's 2.28 million residents across 640 square miles. It's absolutely enormous. And Houstonians are also very young. The median age is only 34.9. It's the second lowest of the nation's major metros. So if you go into the city at any time, there's so many working professionals, some really cool, awesome restaurant scenes, so much to do. It's a young city with a strong heartbeat. Lots and lots of different suburbs to choose from, each with their own unique feel and attributes. I have clients that choose their investment properties accordingly to kind of once they come out and see it, if they come first, or once we've done a consultation and we've kind of walked through, they'll pick a city that kind of fits what they're looking for accordingly. So kind of I touched on this a little bit ago. By the way, this photo is from the Kemah Boardwalk. It's very cool. If you come visit, it's a fun place to see. I have a huge wood roller coaster in the background that you can see there. So very low cost of living, low corporate rents. Vince was kind of touching on this earlier with the importance of the business climate. Low corporate rents is attracting businesses to the area. along with the cost of running businesses in a brick and mortar office. Electricity and gas prices out here, because we are the energy capital of the world, they are a fraction of the cost nationwide. We have a very highly educated workforce, which I just touched on being, generally speaking, a young workforce as well. Tax and regulatory environments are very favorable for businesses. And the Port of Houston, although it's not necessarily the highest with vehicles or ships coming through, it tops all others in terms of tonnage. There's a lot of items that come through our port every year, and all this was taken from Forbes. So the Houston market performance historically, as we get on the next slide, you can see this is pulled, all this data. You can see this on our website under any of our listings for any of our different markets. This one was specifically pulled for Houston. So this information is pulled from the National Association of Realtors. They're kind of considered the utmost authority when it comes to market performance and analysis. And as you can see, Houston is just always a strong and steady performer. This is one of my favorite things to show clients when they're getting to know the area, the Houston's historical market performance. So let's take a look at how we performed during a really significant recession. In 2008, we barely felt the recession, like barely felt it, less than 1%. It was a 0.59% drop. And then in 2009, we had a growth year. That's wild. There's markets in other parts of the country that had, you know, upwards of 50% corrections, and we literally had a growth year the next year. Since this year, there's been a lot of companies that have moved to Texas over the last decade too. So, you know, arguably we're positioned even stronger at this point.
Yeah, and Rachel, just to jump in, I would say that, you know, talking to a lot of investors, you know, as you know, we talk to tons of people, and that would definitely be one of the most attractive reasons as Texas as a whole, right, is just the stability, right? The consistent steady growth and not seeing many huge years of appreciation or depreciation. As you can see, the last 2 years, 21 and 22, were kind of outlier years, and that was almost everywhere across the nation. But, you know, year over year, you can see something very consistent, as opposed there's a very different trend in other markets, right? Florida's and California's and Nevada's, where there's huge peaks and huge valleys. So for those of you that are interested in the long-term buy and hold strategy, which is a lot of what we promote, is Texas has always been a good home for that.
Absolutely, that's so true. I like to say it's a workhorse. It's a thoroughbred. You know, it performs well, and historically, I like to look back to see how the market's performed in tough years, and this is about as telling as it gets. So I love to share that. Economic powerhouse. So industry diversity, this is another thing Vince was talking about earlier. This is a huge factor that Marshall Reddick looks at when we are selecting and building out our markets. So we want a very, very diverse, you know, job force, job base. And when it comes to Houston, we have one of the most job diverse markets that exists. Very, very spread out. You know, the likelihood of an entire industry exiting is extremely unlikely, but with how diverse this is, you know, compared to some markets where you're heavily reliant on one industry or another, it's very well diversified. So that's something that you want to look at in an investment market. So job stability, industries, like we were saying, energy. That's kind of what people think of when they think of Houston, rightfully so. I mean, our NFL stadium is literally an RG stadium. So as the energy capital of the world, Houston, we truly are the headquarters of intellectual capital for almost every segment within the industry. That includes all these different areas, you know, exploration, production, transmission, marketing, supply, and technology. We employ nearly a third of all the nation's jobs in oil and gas extraction. So it's a pretty huge percentage. There's also a lot of renewable and you know, sustainable energy companies as well, and there's quite a bit of collaboration. It's cool to see. So these are some of the better known companies where they're headquartered here within Houston Metro. So there's many other companies that have locations here as well, but these are ones that have their, at least one of their primary headquarters located here within Houston. So this slide isn't necessarily the prettiest, but this is some pretty cool information. So Houston, or Texas rather, is the #1 state for energy production. So within Houston, we have over 4,700 energy related firms, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. So everything is concentrated pretty tightly within this market. We have 3 million workers within the field here, more engineers than any other US metro. And there's over 600 exploration and production firms, 1,100 oil field service companies, 180 pipeline transportation establishments. And you can see at the bottom how many energy jobs are here, how many publicly traded firms are based out of Houston. And yeah, so it is definitely a huge part of our industry out here. So Fortune 500, this is a big one. This is definitely an attractor for a lot of the workforce here. Quite a few of my friends either work for these companies themselves or have a spouse that works for them. They transferred because of one of these companies. So Houston and Houston Metro, when I say Houston, it's not just the city, but Houston Metro, we're actually the 3rd largest presence of Fortune 500 companies in all of the United States. So the largest in Texas as well. So that's pretty awesome. Obviously, like, those are companies that draw a lot of notoriety, jobs, you know, income, all of that. And just a really dominant presence of top businesses that's going to attract the workforce. Like Vince was saying earlier, there's a strong job market, strong workforce, and that's going to attract people, you know, to come to the market. Okay, so for medical, that is another huge industry out here. So the Texas Medical Center, for anyone that might not be familiar with it, it's actually the largest life sciences destination in the world. So there's over 106,000 employees that work at the Texas Med Center, and this encompasses 61 different institutions. There's thousands of daily volunteers and patient visits, and every year this campus welcomes over 7.2 million visitors. So, I mean, people literally come from around the world to receive care from the best doctors in the field here at Texas Med Center. So it's pretty awesome. There's some incredible breakthroughs in diagnoses and treatments that happen at the campus and in the 8 different academic and research institutions. So it's wild. There's 21 hospitals there, and the Texas Med Center is home to MD Anderson Cancer Center. That's the #1 cancer center in the world, and other major institutions, including Texas Children's. They are #2 in the nation. That also includes Baylor, Houston Methodist, St. Luke's, Memorial Hermann, and Texas Heart Institute. There's more heart surgeries performed at the Med Center than anywhere else in the world, which is kind of crazy. So what does this mean practically speaking, other than that's awesome? The medical center is a huge industry here in Houston, and there are constantly people moving to the area specifically for treatment, which is kind of a unique thing to our city. I've helped a client who relocated here out of state because her husband needed a very specialty cancer care, and they relocated out here. So in addition to people that move domestically, we have more than 18,000 international patients that come to our city for care each year. So it's a pretty big deal. The annual survey that's conducted by US News and World Report on America's Best Hospitals has ranked at least one Texas Med Center institution in every single one of their 19 categories for adults and in all 10 for pediatrics. So all that goes to say, medical is definitely, it's a huge industry and driver out here for jobs. Okay, so aerospace, obviously NASA is going to be the more well-known company, or, you know, government arm. NASA has a very dominant presence in Houston. We have the Johnson Center here, which was absolutely enormous. It has a $1.5 billion complex, over 1,620 acres, southeast of downtown Houston. It's in this gorgeous city called Clear Lake. Lots of really beautiful homes down there, a lot closer to the water too. It's a really pretty area. Johnson Center is home of mission control and astronaut training actively. I have a friend who's an engineer down there as well. In its early days, the center led the Gemini, Apollo, and Skylab projects, and Johnson Center is just a huge tourist destination as well. You know, we see visitors coming from around the world every year to see the huge center. It has a, excuse me, it has a 250,000 square foot educational complex. And since it opened in '92, there's been over 25 million people that have come to see it. So annually, there's about 1.2 million that come to visit. So it's really fun to come see if you haven't seen it. And every year they have nearly 1.25 million visitors that come. Oh, I said that already, sorry. But something aside from NASA, there's actually more than 500 aerospace companies here within Houston Metro, which is a pretty dominant figure. So NASA actually regularly contracts either specific projects or will partner with different aerospace companies on assignments. So you see a lot of collaborative work within the industry here. So recent years, they've given contracts to Axiom Space, Collins Aerospace, and other companies like that for specific, anything from literally like a protective astronaut spacesuit to things that go with satellites and anything like that. So it's cool to see these companies collaborating. So the industry, it is very collaborative and very strong. So size matters. Like I said, Houston is huge, 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 huge. So the first time I actually came out here was in 2020. We drove the entire length of the metro market. We started up at Lake Conroe and went all the way down to the Gulf. It can easily take over 2 hours to get across this, you know, city metro market. So it encompasses 9 different counties, which is pretty extensive. We're going to get into it in a little bit, but the predominant portfolio we have out here is focused in Montgomery County for a variety of reasons, but there are a lot of, you know, there's, depending on where you look at the territory, some people would say up to 13 counties. This is considered more of the true heart of Houston Metro, these 9 counties. So it's a very large area. Okay, so kind of a little cheat sheet here. So you can see if you start at the top, I added little arrows, and at the end you can go back. We can send you guys the information from the presentation, but these are little pockets that have been very popular with either clients that I've helped relocate out here or investors, kind of a quick little reference. So the top left, Wood Forest, that's a very popular master plan community. Beautiful. I actually helped my parents move out here from Seattle, and they moved there. It's stunning. It's gorgeous. And there are properties that are affordable up there as well. So Magnolia, there's a lot of different options that they have to offer. It's an established community, but there are elements of the city that are more rural. So there are a lot of new construction and expansion out there. So there's some master plan communities, a lot of new construction opportunities. There's multifamily property, which one of my property picks tonight is a multifamily based out of Magnolia, acreage communities, and yeah, there's literally even like people that want equestrian neighborhoods. If you're, I mean, that would probably be more applicable to a primary residence, but if you were looking for something like that, Magnolia is your place. So the Woodlands, that is definitely, I would say, our most popular investment city within Houston Metro. When you say the Woodlands, it incorporates a lot of Montgomery County, but that city, it's actually not a city, it's a township. It was founded in 1979 and is a master plan community. We'll get more into that in a little bit, but there's some really good opportunities there as well. Cypress, that's a fantastic area. Sorry, I put that arrow over the word, but lots of new master plan communities in Cypress. So For my clients that are looking to, they work in the city and they don't want to, whether it's tenants that are leasing from Marshall Reddick investors who have purchased, and they work in Houston, don't want to deal with commuting all the way up necessarily to further north areas. Cypress is a really good happy medium. You can easily hop on toll roads, get into the city. There are established neighborhoods that are very affordable there, and generally speaking, there are some phenomenal schools in Cypress too. Lots and lots of blue ribbon rated schools out there. So that's a great option to explore as well. We'll say the downside to these last two markets on the left, they oftentimes are in really high flood zone areas, so the insurance expenses can be very cost prohibitive. Not always, it's case by case. I always reference the flood map before, that's like the first thing I check when I'm helping clients out here, but there's things to keep in mind price-wise. Then we have Katy, Cinco Ranch, Fulshire. These are they're all established neighborhoods, but lots of master plan options. There's some really great amenities there. Unfortunately, they also often are accompanied by higher taxes and, like I said, insurance costs. Specifically, Katy tends to have very high insurance. So up here on the right, we have the lake cities, so Lake Conroe. We have Walden, which is a beautiful community. One of my partners at Marshall Reddick, who actually moved out about a year after I did, he lives in Walden up there. It's a really pretty community. Willis and Bentwater, these are also awesome. A little more rural too. I helped a client move, and we'll get into that in a little bit, who was looking for a little bit more of a rural lifestyle, and he and his brother moved out to Willis as well. So yeah, so as far as, it looks like I didn't put I apologize for that, but for Conroe, I was, that's what that other arrow was supposed to go to. It looks like it got tweaked when I moved the slide. I apologize. So lots of expansion, lower price points, sometimes some higher property taxes. So for New Caney and Porter, we have some master plan communities as well. It was a much more rural area, and you're seeing a lot of development there. It's kind of like, I would say, an east version of what we saw in Magnolia. So in Spring, this is where I live. It gets a little confusing because, like I said, the Woodlands is not a city, it's a township. And so it's made up of quite a few cities, but the biggest city that makes it up is Spring. But there's a lot of properties that would be considered the Woodlands that have a Spring address, like my Woodlands house, which I'll get into in a little bit. But I live in Spring proper, Spring. So lots and lots of good A and B class properties. It's an established area, very popular with investors. I would say Spring and the Woodlands currently are tied for my top two most popular with investors. It really just depends on what you're looking for. I'll give you a perfect example of what you can find in both in a little bit. So yeah, depending on your, oh, go ahead, Vince.
Oh, I was just gonna say this is super helpful, and before you went to the next slide, I was just gonna ask you about generally speaking, you kind of just answered it, but like, where are the, us looking at the map here, where are the kind of areas that you think you're spending the most time with investors or with individuals just in your primary business?
Great question. Do you mean for primary home buyers, or you just mean generally speaking for investors?
Yeah, for kind of both, right? So like for the investors that you're seeing a lot of, maybe that like are on tonight's webinar, or that would be good to know, but also just like where you're seeing some of the primary buyers also, because I know you do a lot of work for people who are buying primary residences as well.
Great question. Primary would be like close your eyes and like shoot a paintball gun at the map, because it's been literally the place. But because I've had clients that moved for job transfers where they needed to be specifically located to a certain sector of the city. So, and you're not as worried about your numbers when you're buying as a primary as you are for an investment property. So definitely I would say the heavy majority would be in Spring and the Woodlands, both Woodlands like proper and in Spring, like where I live. But Spring is absolutely huge too. The Woodlands is very large. It's comprised of a lot of different villages, and it started being built out in 1979 and has, there's still some area being developed. So it's a very meticulously planned master plan community. And I'm going to get into some of the things that are pros and cons of both. But yeah, to answer your question, I would say definitely the Woodlands is probably like the star child.
Perfect.
And then last but not least here, coastal areas. Honestly, I don't recommend it for a long-term buy and hold investor. It's harder with, well, very cost prohibitive with insurance costs, but definitely have people that buy second homes down there. There's some beautiful areas, but as far as like a long-term tenant, not as ideal. And at this time, it's far enough outside of our footprint that we wouldn't be able to offer property management services that far south at this time. Okay, so investor spotlight, Montgomery County. You know, I was getting into the county itself being our most popular for investor, just like what Vince was just asking. Honestly, the screenshot of what you see zoomed in right here is where the overwhelming majority of our investors' properties are located. So both properties that I own in the area are in this specific sector. Montgomery County is really a winner for a variety of reasons. You can find some better priced properties that's a little further from the city. I mean, you can still get into the city quickly. I was literally down there yesterday to meet up with a client, and I took the toll road. It took me about 45 minutes to get where I needed to go. So we have some great toll roads here. If you don't mind paying the toll, which to me, that is the easiest decision you make for the day, not to sit in traffic. So, but Montgomery County, we're much further from the coast. It's about a 90-minute drive to the Gulf from most of this area. So generally speaking, insurance costs are lower up here. Laws tend to be more landlord friendly in this area. There are a lot of award-winning schools up here, and a lot of the properties are considered out of a flood zone, which is the best possible flood designation for Houston. Again, if we start looking at this on a zoomed in level, that's the first thing I'm going to look at for you. But you'll see more of that up here, further away from the coast. Okay, so city spotlight. So quick side note, I just want to point out that building that you see there on the left is our office building here in the Woodlands. My office is on that side, so we're right along the waterway. It's so beautiful. I love this area. So niche.com, I feel like the township, this is their favorite, you know, little fun fact to wave every year, but we frequently get rated in the top 3 for their various designations. Right now we're ranked the #1 city in America to buy a house, so that bodes well for investors. The #2 city in America to raise a family, so also great for investors because you have a whole bunch of prospective tenants looking to move to the area for everything we already talked about, and ranked the #3 city in America to live. So it's a great city spotlight, great place to live. This is, and like I said, this is where our first Houston office is located, right here. So a little bit more in this photo, this is Market Street, which is one of our, I'd say, a more upscale, like outdoor mall. That in the photo you can see is a splash pad. Behind that is Tommy Bahama. And then closer to like where the camera is actually set up, they have a huge green area, which when we started tonight, I could actually hear they have concerts in the park on Thursday night. So it's pretty fun. They have all kinds of free events in the community regularly. So within the Woodlands, there's 9 different unique villages. We have over 150 parks, including there's 14 different township pools, which is pretty awesome. And lots of outdoor recreation. We got hiking, biking, running trails. We have golf, including the tournament course at Woodlands Country Club, which actually hosts the senior PGA every year. I'm not so much of a golf fan, but it's really fun to see. You can, people line the course, and I have friends that live on the golf course. They really thoughtfully laid out that first original village, Grogan's Mill, which is where both of the golf courses are located. So you can literally, you know, people have parties and barbecues and just watch the PGA right out the backyard. It's really, really fun. And corporate headquarters, including within the Woodlands, we have a lot of leading companies, including Chevron and Chicago's St. Luke's, the Woodlands Hospital, ExxonMobil, Huntsman, McKesson, Memorial Hermann, and more. So really a wide variety of dining, hospitality, healthcare, and more. There's quite a bit to do here. So our client relocation stories. Not necessarily diving deep into specifics, but I would say something that is unique to this market, not that it doesn't happen elsewhere. I honestly didn't see it that much prior to COVID, but now you see it across the country with all of our markets. These are specific examples of clients that I have seen that have relocated from around the country to move to the area. So I helped empty nesters from Seattle. There's a bachelor set of brothers that moved. They were in a really busy metro area and they wanted just a quieter lifestyle. They found a really beautiful newer home within Willis, which is kind of a sleepy suburb north of Conroe. It's a gorgeous community. And they were able to sell their home and pay cash for this property for a fraction of the cost and get a absolutely breathtaking home for about half of the price of what they sold their previous home for. Helped a young family with a job transfer. So this family, the wife worked at Mastro's, and they just opened one at Market Street, which is where I just showed you in the last slide. So she had the opportunity to transfer out here. I've also helped a family in a very similar position where the fiance worked at Boss Cat, and they also just opened a location out here. So you're seeing these larger restaurant groups pay attention and put money where they're seeing these communities build out. These restaurants are very popular. It's bringing in the job force and really commanding people moving to the area. So that's been pretty cool. I helped clients, I touched on that earlier, that relocated for medical treatment that needed to come for the Texas Med Center. So that is not unique to me. We have people, move in from the area all the time. You see that there's literally lots of housing around there. I helped a family that the husband switched careers and was able to work 100% remotely. He worked in a state that had income tax and decided he could move out here, buy a large home for his family that was beautiful, put his kids in top-rated schools, and not pay state income tax. So they slashed their costs across the board and relocated. And then I have helped families. This is another thing that's very special about Houston Metro with schools. We have very highly rated IEP programs, so and ILP programs too. So for people with special abilities, children that have some unique needs, these education systems are able to custom tailor plans, work with these families. And in other states, a lot of times they don't have the resources that we have dedicated for that here in Houston. So families will have to drive really far to be able to get their kids the education that they need. And out here, there's usually, in more cases than not, almost all schools offer these programs out here, which is pretty unheard of in some of the markets that both of these families moved from different markets, and one family was driving almost an hour in each direction twice a day to be able to find their child a school that could accommodate their needs. So anyways, these are just some stories of reasons people have moved here, in addition to all the things we touched on earlier. So real quick, circling back, making it personal again, these are my two properties that my husband and I own out here in Houston. So we have the home on the right. That is our sweet little primary residence. We rented it for a year, ended up buying it from our landlord. And I like to put this in here because this is a great example of exactly what you could look for here within Spring. So this would definitely be considered an A-class property. The house is built in 2017. It's a 3-2, which for Texas, they consider that kind of cozy, but you can find some good 3-2s or even 4-2s in Spring in the mid 300s. I would say that you can definitely find some a little bit less than that, definitely find some much higher than that. I would say mid 3s for a 3-2 is a sweet spot. The rents are typically speaking, a little bit higher out in Houston as well. They kind of align with the higher income we have in this market as well. The house on the left, you see, I like to touch on this. It's kind of a cool story. So this home started, I like to say, it started back in 2017 with $25,000 that I used as a down payment that my husband and I did to buy a house in Tennessee, which last year we 1031 did. It appreciated tremendously. We did a 1031 exchange, purchased this home in the heart of the Woodlands. Panther Creek was the second village that was established within the Woodlands, and purchased this 5-bedroom, 2.5-bath home, 2 blocks from Lake Woodlands. There's properties a stone's throw away that are multi-million dollars. We got it for $505,000. We've put a good amount of work into it if you looked at the original photos. But with that being said, it just goes to show how far your money can go out here. Last year, this property rented for $3,500 a month. My property on the right, if I were to rent it today in my neighborhood, would probably rent in the neighborhood of $24,000 to $24,500. So that's kind of firsthand an example of where, you know, I really do believe in this market. I'm not just saying it. I've chosen to invest here, and it's been really good to us and my clients as well. Okay, so I have a couple quick property picks, and then I'll turn it back over to Vince. I really appreciate you sticking with us tonight. So just literally 2, short and sweet. So this first property is in a community called Forest Village. Now, obviously, we have access to anything that's available in the MLS. We'd be happy to show you. The properties tend to, you know, move the easiest way if you're interested in taking next steps, is we could do a deep dive on the market, kind of find out specifically the strategy you're looking for, and I can help point you in the best direction depending on what you're looking for. But I have had multiple investors purchase in this community. Forest Village, it leases very quickly. In fact, this property is, I believe, 2 doors down from a property I sold earlier this year. It's priced very favorably, and a great neighborhood. This particular property within this neighborhood is a short walking distance to one of the coolest parks that my kids are just in love with. We jokingly call it the Ninja Park because there's ropes, courses, and all kinds of really cool climbing. And then it's also not too far from their splash pad within the community too. So this is a great opportunity out here in a neighborhood that's very popular. It's an established neighborhood, but this particular pocket within the neighborhood is newer. And last but not least, the multifamily property pick, Enclave at Dobbin. So this particular community is built by Value Builders. They are a seasoned builder out here in Texas, which in Texas that matters because you don't need to have a license for a lot of these contracting things. So it's imperative you know who you're working with. That's a really big deal to us to work with companies that are established and have integrity. So all that goes to say, it's a great product. As you can see here, there is an interest rate promotion that the builder did a forward commitment buy down on. There's only 2 left. As I talked to the preferred lender, Reed Hazard, tonight, he's phenomenal. Highly recommend you talk to Reed if you have not gone through pre-approval, and that's applicable for any of our markets. But he is my secret weapon. I would be happy to get you connected. Vince does quite a bit of work with him as well. But there's 2 of these loans left that the builder has specifically paid down. So they're both 10-year ARMs at 4.75. It's a great product because we haven't seen interest rates for a loan of that term that low in some time. That's very costly for the builder to do this. They occasionally do it. They go quickly when they do. There was quite a couple weeks back, and there's, like I said, there's only 2 left. So if anyone is interested, this is a great pick. And obviously it's a newer build, so the estimated lower maintenance is quite a bit lower. They have very, very durable finishes on the interior. It's just statistically lower with new builds.
Yep, Rachel, I would have to agree that is that is one of the most attractive I think promotions that I've heard of, to be honest. So for those of you that are listening and that are following interest rates and knowing that that's kind of our biggest headwind recently, to have something that's secured at that low of a rate is pretty incredible. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of make sure we highlighted that again as something that is not the norm.
Absolutely not the norm. And coming from Vince, that's a lot too, because he worked in lending for a long time. Vince is a whiz with numbers as well. So, but this is true. It's a pretty amazing opportunity, and you don't see builders putting that much money into loans that often, period. And usually when they buy them down with the lenders, their preferred lenders, like they did in this instance, they buy them in blocks. It's not individual. So like I said, there's only 2 left. And so real quick, Q4 Houston Metro promotion. I am running a promo for everyone on the call this evening. We are offering 1 year of free property management for anyone that purchases a new property, not necessarily a new build, but who purchases from now through the end of the year here in Houston Metro, 1 year of free property management with Marshall Reddick. So if anybody is ready to take the leap and follow my lead, Houston has been an incredible market. I hope you can see truly how meaningful it is to me, and it means the world to me that you guys came out. I would love to chat more, as would Vince, if anyone has any questions. But I really appreciate your time, and I'll turn it back over to Vince.
Yeah, awesome job, Rachel. That was amazing. Tons of really valuable information there. Really excited that we were able to get your time on all of this. This was really helpful for the folks that are especially unfamiliar. So speaking of property management, that's a really attractive promotion that you're launching as well. And for those of you that may be unfamiliar with property management, I just wanted to quickly highlight kind of the high level rates and fees and terms here, right? You'll see there's a breakdown. It's kind of a sliding scale from a single family home starting at 8% gross monthly rent to 4% at those 30 plus unit buildings. Our fee structure is pretty straightforward, right? So we have our monthly management fee, which is that percentage down here at the bottom. You're going to also have a leasing fee. So that's anytime that there's a vacant unit, we're going to place a tenant. That'd be 50% of the first month's rent. Again, that's only when we have to place tenants. Renewals are not at that rate. Renewals, you'll see at the very top, is 15%, and then the late fee is split 50-50 between you as the client and us as the management company. So pretty straightforward there. I wouldn't consider it a big profit center for us, but truly, like, what does property management do? Why is there so much hype around it? And the reality is we need to understand the rental laws, issuing proper disclosures, and truly, it's really to keep you out of court, right? We just want to make sure that you're following the letter of the law and that we are enforcing the lease as it reads, right? So that you don't have to do that. That is ultimately our most basic job, is to enforce the lease. And the reality is we try to position property management in a way where we're only making money when you're making money, right? So if the property is vacant, we don't charge a management fee, and we're trying to incentivize, and we want to align our goals to make sure that we're going after the same thing. And it's really important to understand that us as the brokerage and us as the property manager, we don't want to set up the other core part of our business for failure. So targeting good quality properties in good quality markets and seeking out quality tenants is really critical, and that's something that we stand by.
Hey, Vince, can I hop in real quick on that? That's a great point. So I just showed you on a map a couple slides ago my 2 properties. I literally, from my home to my Woodlands house is like a 15-minute drive. From our office to the Woodlands house is like a 6-minute drive. I would never be foolish enough to try to self-manage. I mean, it's in my backyard, literally. It's a stone's throw away, but I'm not a legal expert. I do not want that liability exposure or anything. So all that goes to say, I mean, I literally do this for a living, and I would never not have a property management company. And full disclosure, Vince and I don't get employee discounts. We pay what you pay. But to me, the company has always done a great job taking care of my property for me. It's a great value, and I can't recommend it enough. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Well said. Okay, and for those of you that are more the analytical folks and want to have this kind of data to review further, we have data packets that are updated annually. Here's at the bottom here, you can see a link. I'm happy to send this to you guys. It's just going to cover a lot of the demographics and statistics that Rachel went over tonight on our call, but wanted to make sure that you guys have access to it or know where to find it. It's free here on our website. Also, another piece of marketing that I think is really critical for those of you that are unfamiliar with our ebook. This is a really, really great piece of literature that our founders wrote, and you'll notice on our website there's a property class designation with every property, and this book helps detail how we came up with that, what that actually means to you as an investor, and why it's important. A lot of it is price driven and based on the median home price in a certain metropolitan statistical area. But ultimately, there's a lot of other factors that go into property class, and this book gives you a really good rounded knowledge of that. So I highly recommend for those of you that are interested in learning a little bit more about that to take a look. I will be doing some follow-up calls, whether that's tomorrow or early next week, right? Just to kind of recap, we want to always thank you guys for joining. And then also, if there's questions that didn't get answered tonight, we are, running out of time here. So for those of you that did have questions that didn't get answered, we want to make sure that we can cover those and make sure we're setting up proper calls, whether it's just to quickly go over, the who, what, when, where, and why, right? Whether it's, trying to understand why you might be looking to buy, what are your options, talking about time frame. This is kind of a quick example of what our calls can look like. It could also just be, thanks for coming and let us know when you're looking for the next one. So happy to answer wherever the conversation goes. But this is basically the best way to get in touch with myself. I'm also Rachel, we're going to be sending out a follow-up tomorrow with the recording. So for those of you that may have missed anything, you'll have my contact, you'll have Rachel's contact. So you'll be able to connect with us very easily. But again, we really want to thank all of you folks for taking the time out this evening to join us for our Houston webinar. And I also want to give a big thank you to Rachel. That was an amazing presentation, and we're really happy we were able to tune in and get all this valuable info.
Yeah, thank you so much, Vince. It's been awesome. And you guys, we really appreciate you coming out, and we look forward to conversations from here. So hope everybody has a wonderful evening.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.